our camera again because for some reason it wasn't showing us recording. Here we go. Okay, I see. It's also recording. Okay, sorry about that glitch. Things went a bit funny here today. Right, well, as I said, welcome to the Inworld Review. This show broadcasts live every Sunday as part of the Metaverse Week in Review over at metaverseweekinreview.com, no less, plus MBTV Live and all the other fun places we're embedded. Those of you who are watching us live, in fact, on the channel have probably just seen a few clips. We sort of like to present at the beginning of the show as talking points, things like gesture technology, including tongue technology. I'm not sure about that. We might discuss that in a minute. We had a look at Eshi Ottawa's Real World studio, which was kind of interesting. This year's Cyber Carnival, which was held in Nice, France. I think it's the third or maybe fourth year now, where it's a real world carnival, but the giant screens throughout Nice projecting the Second Life version of it on the streets. And of course, those in the Second Life version are having a party all of their own. So it's a great example of these things interacting. And right at the top of the hour, we showed the latest clip from Drasta de Prey. We've gone, as you probably know, is Floofy. But Drasta's actually launched a new series, which is apparently going to be monthly. It's called World Builders, and basically looking at sort of creative, interesting avatars in Second Life and mixing sort of a real world interview with them with machinima and just a lovely mixed media mash, which really suits our program fine, which is really what we're all about. Anyway, a few talking points there. I'm sure my guests, when we come to them, may actually mention some of those things. First off, of course, I've got the news from the metaverse, as it were, the greater metaverse, open simulators and such for this week. There isn't a great deal. Something I will maybe mention a little bit later, actually, is the news that Facebook, Amazon, and Google have all got together to help a charity to create a cancer-busting mobile game. Now, we don't normally do games here, but I think the idea is it will be an educational, interactive environment, sort of designed to help prevent, where possible, and cancers. And I don't know what will be in the game yet, but with three big companies like that all taking part of it could be interesting. The Inworlds is one of the OpenSim grids, which is a walled garden, a bit like Second Life here where we're broadcasting, and it uses OpenSimulator code, I should say. They have actually upgraded this week their own viewer, that is, to be fully mesh enabled. So if you use their own viewer, you will now get mesh properly, so to speak. Neuroscientists have been urging colleagues to work with game developers, oddly enough. Here we go with the games again, to create brain training tools. And one thing I didn't have a clip of to show this week is rather interesting. Apparently, brain-computer interfaces have now gone wireless. Many of you have probably seen pictures of people with these electrodes and things sticking around their heads, cabled up to computers for their brain to interface with their avatar or whatever. Well, now they're doing it wirelessly. You can actually wear this thing that looks like a bit like a miniature dunce's cap, actually, believe it or not. And that will send a wireless signal from your brain to the computer, so you don't need to worry about communicating with your brain and computer and trailing wires around anymore. Isn't progress wonderful? What else have we got? A company called Metaverse Technology have launched a fully featured cross-platform service for Web3D. Now, at first sight, this looks like a sort of marketplace for OpenSim. It features mainly collada files. These are mesh files, essentially, that you can then take and res in various virtual worlds where they allow you to import them and res them, including, oddly enough, Second Life. Most of the stuff is a marketplace, i.e. it is people selling their collada files, but there is some free stuff there too. So the company doing that's called Metaverse Technology, which Fairly basic name there. Yes, another company using the word metaverse in their title, which is hardly unusual these days. Where else? Oh, yes. OpenSimGrid, OS Grid, has a new legal status and a new welcome region. Basically, it is now filed, as I guess they would say in the US, as a non-profit company. So their legal status has sort of changed. But the grid doesn't seem to have changed much in itself, other than giving you a new welcome area. Right. Needless to say, I'm scrolling up rather than down my own Twitter feed here. We mentioned Kokua, which is the successor to the Imprudence Bureau, last week. But there was one post this week saying that they have merged the Communication Hub user interface, CHUI, into the Kakua viewer. I'm not sure how this will work long term, because I think this CHUI interface is a Linda Labs proprietary system, which presumably works with the Kakua viewer, which is in beta. Whether they are actually allowed to include that in a viewer that is, I gather, really being designed to access OpenSim, I'm not sure. But anyway, the beta version has the the CHUI Communications Hub user interface in it as of now. And finally, a little thing I posted near the big. Well, actually, it's not the final thing. But one of the things I posted in the week actually is that this show, or rather, Metaverse Week in Review, the Sunday Marathon show, of which this is part, now have a community on Google Plus called Metaverse Week in Review, and you are welcome to join it. It is a good little place to have conversations, suggest things you might want on this show or the main show. But more to the point, it is the system by which we will be inaugurating the Google Hangouts that we're going to be including on the channel. Along with our avatar broadcasts too. So if you want to be in our Google Hangout with your real world cam or avatar cam if you want, do check out Metaverse Week in Review in Google Communities on Google+. Right, now there was something else. Oh yes, I'm afraid that the CEO, I guess, from Pixie Viewer wasn't able to get back to us in time and isn't actually going to be a guest on this week's show. Hopefully he'll be here next week. And sadly, Deb's Regent is still a little bit poorly, so she's not going to be on the show this week either. But don't you worry. We have stuff coming up for you, as you'll find out in a minute. However, something very interesting that the Pixie Viewer did announce during the week is that they've implemented into the interface a 3D printing system. The idea being that if you are wandering around in an OpenSim and looking at a stage like this and you fancy the chair I'm sitting on, you will be able to select the chair and then print it out to a 3D printer. Now, that sounds cool. I think we'll be talking about that in a bit too. What else? No, I think that's about it for the greater highlights. We will be, of course, coming to various highlights and discussion points from inside Second Life and the other worlds as we go on by. But I think it's now time to focus on Tara, who is sitting to the left of me, and find out her latest take on the week, as it were. So welcome, Tara.
Thank you, Mel. And indeed, I am sitting here to your left, to the camera's right, as Petlove zooms out and changes focus. And greetings from the RL Sim Pacific Northwest, where actually today the sun is out. Amazing. It's not particularly warm, but I'm noticing some things like some crocus starting to bloom and daffodils coming up and all kinds of things that are suggestive of spring being just around the corner. So that's good news. I am wearing, in comment from the videos that started the show, the hoodie that I am wearing is a special deal. We also have Dragster's new machinima, and this particular hoodie, produced by Loki, is a limited edition that you can pick up right now. I'm not an advertiser. I'm making nothing on this, but I thought it was pretty fun, and I went and picked one up. And it's got, or you can pretty much get a picture of it, I can see, so I don't have to stand up to show it off. I will give you fair warning if you happen to be female and you go and pick one of these up, you will have to use some small size pants to wear with it. While Loki provides one that accommodates the chest of a female avatar, of an adult female avatar, it does not seem to do very well in the posterior department. I discovered as I when I was putting this on, and I had to do a bit of quick adjusting so that I wasn't poking out the back end. Anyway, the joys of mesh. And that the various mesh deformation tools are still in the works, and maybe next week I'll do a little update because there's been more discussion back and forth going on in the wiki on that whole project. Let's see the other item. I think Mal, you ran the little clip showing me on my Megapus or next to my Megapus, and I brought Megapus along today, and she's parked in front of the stage. So at some point, I'm sure we'll get a shot in. So there is a kitty in the picture here today, and there's also one on the back of my chair here, but you can't see that one because it's in the RL sim. Gadgets seem to be kind of the buzzword of the week. There was one that Hamlet picked up on that's currently running in Kickstarter called Maestro, which is a finger mouse that is rather intriguing and will allow you to do a lot of things. The thing will fit over your index finger, presumably on either hand. It appears to be. It is wireless, and you can touch it, and you can also just tap your finger and do various things that are mouse-like with it. It looks very cool. So it will enable, as his headline said, it will enable you to use your finger to actually goose somebody in World if you so choose. Anyway, there's that item. But another one that really caught my attention was scientists have found that using video, even as short as 30-second videos, they can uncover motion that is invisible to the human eye. And specifically what this does, for example, a 30-second video of a newborn baby shows the infant silently snoozing in its crib, his breathing barely perceptible. But when the video is run through an algorithm that can amplify both movement and color, the baby's face blinks crimson with each tiny heartbeat. The amplification process is called Eulerian video magnification. Say that 3 times fast. It's a brainchild of a team of scientists at MIT, Computer Science and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. It was originally developed to monitor neonatal babies without making physical contact. But they quickly discovered that this algorithm can be applied to other videos that can reveal changes imperceptible to the naked eye, of all kinds of things. And one of the things that they imagine it could be used for is in search and rescue, being able to tell from a distance if someone who is trapped in a place that's hard to get to, and you've got to get people there rappelling down cliffs or lowered from helicopters, being able to tell if somebody's still breathing. But there's a whole new world besides that. For example, it can show tiny movements in things like cranes, construction cranes, like the big tall ones they use for skyscrapers. Basically, the system works by homing in on specific pixels in a video over the course of time, frame by frame. The program identifies minute changes in color and then amplifies them up to 100 times. So it can turn a subtle pink into, say, a bright crimson. It's a sort of thing, it has potentials for being able to get a fix on your poker player, your poker player competitor, all kinds of things. As they introduced it at SciGraph, I think was the place where they did a show earlier this year, and they've been inundated with requests for information. including such things as healthcare to lie detection and law enforcement. One of the people was curious about how the program might be used in conjunction with Google Glasses to see changes in a person's face while gambling. They've posted the code online, making it available to anyone who wants to download it and run the program. And they've introduced actually a Taiwan-based manufacturer of laptop computers that help finance the project, has provided a way for people to upload video clips to their website to see what happens when the videos run through the program. It's also got financing from National Science Foundation and World Dutch Shell, and they're working on making the program as an app for smartphones. Fascinating stuff, and I'm just wondering, okay, what are the virtual world applications for this sort of thing? You know, if a video can identify that sort of stuff, what about a live cam identifying that and using that as a relay source for motion or whatever? You know, it's intriguing concepts there. Anyhow, onward. The sixth Machinima Challenge by the University of Western Australia has been officially announced with the theme of reflections. Deadline is going to be June 30th this year, and the prizes, they've got a million lindens in prize dollars, with the top prize being 200,000 lindens, which translates to about $800 US. I actually did the math. 12 prizes in all in various things, and this has been a hugely popular and increasingly popular competition for machinists. People do have to use one of 3 specific identified sites at the University of Western Australia build, and the theme was chosen in conjunction with the 213 University of Western Australia centenary, as the university reflects on 100 years of existence and ponders the question of what the next 100 years will bring. So, machinists, crank up your cameras. It's time to get thinking. Linden Lab has actually posted several things in their blog this week. Much to my surprise, it's been scarce, as I think everybody has noted and complained about, and I know I certainly have. And part of what they posted was an update on some of the developments going on with the official viewer. Mal mentioned earlier the Chewy beta viewer is now in beta. Chewy stands for Communications Hub User Interface. Another one that's a mouthful. Yeah, Chewy. Yeah, it's a mouthful. Bad. Anyway, that it allows you. It's pulling all the various parts of communication in World into one window. I don't know if Mal, you've got the video, the official video on this in the post-show collection or not, but I definitely suggest taking a look at it. You can download and start using the beta viewer and play with it if you want. It looks like it's got some real pluses over the present system, so I think it's going to be well worth taking a look at and getting familiar with. Some of the things I think that are particularly noteworthy is IMs, and one of the issues that lots of people have is IMs getting capped, and it sounds like that is going to improve dramatically, because stuff's going to get logged and it'll be there, and it'll be there for up to a month afterwards, that you can readily see on the fly conversations that happened while you were offline or somebody IM'd you. So very, very useful kind of thing on that. And the busy mode is being replaced with a do not disturb mode, which apparently will also, when you take yourself off do not disturb, will show you the conversations that you missed while you were flagged. So as anybody who's done any machinima filming live or done anything else where you've had yourself marked as leave me alone, sometimes it's really hard to tell what's come up while you've been marked away or do not disturb. So this sounds like big improvements to me. Linden Lab claims that since changes in region crossing technology occurred and were rolled out to the full grid on my birthday, January 25th, that the reported teleport failures has dropped by 91%. And, I found that kind of interesting because I have certainly found I have had a lot of problems with teleports, specifically where I crash when I teleport from one sim to another, and the sims are running on different server versions. So I found if it's improved by 91%, I hate to think of where they started from. Anyway, interesting item there. A couple other things, and I'll leave that for individuals to review on their own. There's a project viewer out called Coco that's specifically viewer improvements for the Mac, and that's probably well worth a download and a checkout if you run Second Life using a Macintosh. Iris Ophelia in Hamlet's blog did an excellent 2 articles this week on the subject of how to avoid ripped, unoriginal, or borrowed Second Life content. And I think this is one of those items that I would flag as a do read for sure. She has some really good suggestions on things to be aware of that I certainly hadn't thought of, especially in the age of mesh, where people are basically ripping off mesh stuff from outside of Second Life and just bringing it in wholesale. And it's not stuff that's public domain. So it's the sort of stuff, if you're not out hanging around in other games and kind of aren't keeping up on, some of that current stuff, there are issues that you may not be aware of. So this will give you a bit of a sense of it. And also, she walks through the process of how easy it is using Google to take a graphic, and Google can now search and match it. So if you run across something, you say, I wonder where that came from. It may have been ripped off from the web as a texture. That can give you ways to very quickly check to see if it was or not. Anyway, good article to read. Botgirl Questy had some interesting comments to make about Linden Labs' announcement of the request from MTV's Catfish for in-world couples who have not yet met but are interested in meeting. And Botgirl's initial reaction was like probably most of us of rolling our eyes and saying, "Oh boy, another sleazy treatment of people who meet in virtual environments or online and turn out to be something very different than they are." And the usual sort of ugly media coverage that gets, and went and watched last season's shows and discovered that actually the person who's producing these MTV shows is actually doing a rather impressive job of providing some real depth on those. So her comment was, the common thread in every episode is that someone feels they have to project a false image of themselves to initiate a relationship. As authentic human connection deepens over months or years, they become trapped by the initial lie, fearing that disclosure might end what has evolved into an important friendship. And I sort of wondered from that comment if the producer of this is actually looking for people who reveal that sort of information in their pre-selection screening process and have focused on those sorts of relationships, virtual relationships or not. But an interesting point, and probably worthy of some discussion. So I'll kind of toss that out in the air for down the road. Another little interesting tidbit from blogs from Daniel Voyager. Actually, this is from the SL Universe forums via Daniel Voyager. A survey they did in mid-February regarding the adoption of mesh viewers, and this is specifically in Second Life. And as of that survey, at the moment, it's up to 97% have adopted mesh viewers now. Starting from 1% in July of 2011, and it was up to about 50% in November of 2011. Keeping in mind that this survey is obviously of people who participate in SL Universe, so this doesn't necessarily represent the entire cosmos of Second Life, but it certainly represents the active, a very active slice of that. So it suggests that the people being concerned about not using mesh because of people with non-mesh viewers, that has sunk to the level of pretty much insignificance, which is nice to know. And let's see, one note on an upcoming event, Fashion for Life, which is one of the big spring events leading up to Relay for Life related, and one of the RFL fundraisers starts March 9th, which is the end of this week, and runs through the 17th, involves 9 sims. And the theme this year is the 7 ancient wonders of the world, and it certainly helps raise money and awareness for American Cancer Society. And if you go to, you can, on the map, once it opens, Fashion for Life will get you to a landing sim, and then you can see which the other sim names are based on the 7 wonders of the world. So I won't even try to run those through. So I think that's everything on my list, which is pretty long this week. So on that, I'll toss it back to you, Mel, and introduce who else is here today.
Well, thank you, Sarah. Yes, very interesting there. I've got to admit, it's a bit horrifying when you log out of Second Life because you crash or something. You log in 5 minutes later, or maybe 10 if you rebooted the computer, and you get told immediately your IMs are being capped. In the space of 10 minutes. It can get a bit silly with IM traffic these days, and I think the Chewy viewer does sound like it's going to overcome that problem, for which I will be eternally grateful to Linden Labs, although it is, of course, just one of many things on my list. Interesting. I did try out the original beta of the Chewy stuff and got completely lost and couldn't really figure it out at all. I then tried a beta of Firestorm with it in 2. Sort of in. It was half in and half out. And again, it allowed you to make up groups of friends as opposed to just one big contact list. But I couldn't get it to work properly. So I just gave up on that too. So hopefully the new Chewy is new enough to be workable and just show a lot of potential. Draster's clip was absolutely great. I'd love to have one of those weekly instead of just monthly as he plans. I was a bit concerned that one of the few other Linden Lab announcements of the week was a promotion for Draster's clip. Well, very worthy. Don't get me wrong, I'm really glad to see they're promoting it and everything else, but one got the impression, have they never heard of designing worlds or MBTV or Metaverse TV or Treat TV or something? The suggestion was that somehow this was a kind of first. But it was an excellent clip, I've got to admit. So good on Draster for that and getting the publicity too. My Skype suddenly went very dull there for a second, but I presume you're still hearing me. Anyway, yes, yeah, it's time to introduce our other guests. And I'd like to welcome, as usual, in fact, to my... What is it? She's to my right, so therefore she is stage left. It's Saffia Widdershins. Hi, Saffia.
Hello, Mal. Hello, Tara.
Right, and and over by Tara on the other side, we've got a good old friend of the channel. In fact, I think we were talking about him very recently, actually, because we were reflecting on what a wonderful metameet we had in Dublin and how it was all so perfectly done some years ago. But actually, he likes to call himself Dublin Mayor now. But some of you know him as Rambler, and he does have other names too. He's the boss of Virtual Dublin, amongst other things. And this, I believe, it's only the first time he's been on this show Inworld, as opposed to the old show where we were on webcam, so to speak. But he hasn't been around for a while, so it's great to see him back. So welcome, Rambler.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you, Mal. Good to be back, actually.
Good to see you. Good to see you. I think I'll actually start with you, Ham, if I may, just before we get into all the greater conversations we get into here. How are things with you, Virtual Dublin? And, of course, you are a well-travelled man, and I believe you've been encountering certain figures in strange places recently. So let's hear it all.
Yes, I have. Well, I have been a little bit absent in the past 13 or so months because I moved to Bahrain where I currently am at the moment. And Bahrain is an interesting place for lots of reasons. It's having its share of political protests, which keep me interested. And it also, very strangely, has got the secondlife.com website is blackballed, so you can't actually log into it without use of a VPN. You can log into World, strange enough, without any restrictions. But anyway, so my participation has been a little bit reduced, mainly because of time zones. Just so you're aware, it's midnight here in Bahrain now, and it's a time when things are actually picking up in UK time in the UK and also in the US. So that's curtailed my presence just a little bit. But I have had a couple of interesting developments in the last 3 or 4 months. The one I'll talk about first, which actually came in by email this morning. A university professor in Australia called Wade Halverson has been, he put together a business paper for use in universities called Marketing the Green Dots. And it's centered around the business premise that was Dublin Virtually Live. And the concept was that the use of the map with the green dots on it gave you some idea of the level of use of that particular part of the grid, and therefore you could use that as a measure for how much advertising exposure you would get based on the number of green dots that were visible. He put together a course around that, and I adjudicated for 4.5 months ago. I adjudicated live with their first student batch in New Zealand as they gave their presentations about what they had learned from the course. It was followed up with a Swiss teacher called Sabine Emad, who also took the course and took this paper, which has been published. And I got an email during the week saying that the two of them had jointly won the New Media Consortium EduCause 2012 Horizon Report Award. For their, the award is actually for Innovation in Case Teaching Competition Winners 2013. So it's nice to see that virtual worlds have still got quite a thread running in the educational sector. And I was delighted to read that. The other thing, which I think you alluded to in your introduction, was kind of interesting as well. A few months back, I got a call from Jessica Dwalski, who some of you may recall from various SLCCs, who is now in San Francisco as Philip Rosedale's PA. And she had spotted on Facebook that I was in the Dubai region and told me that Philip was passing through Dubai on his way from a couple of weeks in Saudi Arabia, attending a university thing over there. And then on his way back to San Francisco, and would I be interested in entertaining him for the day? I did have to think all of about 2 nanoseconds for that one, obviously. And it was very easy to check whether my diary was free or not. So we had a very interesting day out. He was fascinated by Dubai, particularly the buildings that are going up out there, and really he said this is really like Second Life in real life, where they've unlimited space, so you just build these hugely outrageous buildings costing millions and millions of pounds with nobody in them. But a couple of really interesting things came out of the conversation. One was, and I don't know if any of you guys here in the studio or listening to this have come across this book yet, but he insisted I get a copy of a book called Ready Player One, and I read it because it is about the onward development of Second Life and where it could all end up.
Oh no, I didn't know that.
It is a novel. It's dark in places. It's centers around basically everybody living in virtual worlds, because the real world is just such a nasty place to live in anymore. Anyway, I would strongly recommend it. He recommended it to me. I got a copy and read it. I've read it twice now. It's definitely worth a read. And the other thing that I was very, very impressed by was his level of enthusiasm for continuing to develop the Second Life platform with new technology. So although they haven't come out, all we tend to get from Linden Labs is little snippets of tweaks and things, I can tell you that Philip is still passionately and I mean passionately
It's
involved in taking it forward dramatically.
He has actually been advertising outside of Second Life recently for 3D developers, and I think it's something going forward with his separate projects. But Hamlet sort of picked up on it, but he just it was as is Hamlet's way. It was just is rumored to be, but I have seen the advert, so it'd be very interesting to hear from him what's happening there. I guess we'll find out when it happens. He's very keen on architecture, isn't he? We also had a little meeting with him a couple of years back here when he was over here presenting on virtual architecture, really. Sort of, it was to the Architectural Society, if I remember rightly, on the South Bank. So he seems to have a fondness for that as well as physics.
Well, certainly taking him to the tallest building in the world, which is the Burj Khalifa, I think was quite a big deal for him, and an unexpected treat on a stopover.
When you actually referred to all these buildings costing mega millions and completely empty, I hope it didn't resonate too much with some of the rumours about Second Life.
No, I'm fairly sure it did. I mean, I think he still showed a phenomenal level of enthusiasm. I mean, we talked for the whole day about the potential and how he's still getting quite a kick out of it. The only other thing, of course, I need to mention, which I should do, of course, it's we're in March, and as you know, the 17th of March is St. Patrick's Day, and it's I like to call it a World Festival Day now, because it seems to have been adopted by most countries in the world as an excuse to go out and sit in a pub and drink a bit and sing out your songs.
Green stripes down the middle of roads and
yes, all of those things, and colour the rivers.
Anywhere there's a pint of Guinness available in this party day.
So needless to say, Dublin in Second Life will be incredibly busy over that period, and we hope we'll see as many Irish people, pseudo-Irish people who would love to be Irish, and people who claim any level of Irishness in them. In other words, they've drunk a pint of Guinness at some point in their life. are all welcome to show up to celebrate the day on March 17th.
Okay, that's wonderful. I'll have to dig out everything in the inventory that says green or St. Paddy's Day on it, of which there is quite a lot.
With my avatar's last name, I have immediate claim.
Fair enough. Okay, let's move on a bit into general conversation. And Saffia, I saw you last night. Actually, I kept discreetly quiet, but you, Gentle Heron, hosted a little talk with you about the where do we go next with OBR 1 Billion Rising.
That's right. Yes.
Carry on. Over to you, Saffia.
Yes, a lot of people were sort of saying to me, have been saying, well, what did it achieve? What did it accomplish? It was just a day of dancing. What does dancing ever do, etc., etc. That was never the plan. It was to raise awareness, and that worked. And now we invited people to join in and ask us and discuss with us where they thought 1 Billion Rising ought to go next. I think there's quite a lot of support for it happening again next year, which is great. People thought it was a good event and they wanted to see it happen again. The general feeling, I think, was that what happens next should be some kind of education and an extension of education, letting people learn more about issues and so forth, and developing more. And the idea is to use the kiosks. You've got ones behind me on the stage now with information. There are people who are willing to work on finding information to put out in as many languages as possible that can cover issues about probably not just about violence against women, but violence against people in general. Yeah. And what you should do if you find yourself in such a situation, what organizations exist to help, online and in the real world in different countries.
I thought the meeting was quite curious. I just sort of listened in, really. The one time I tried to type something, I crashed. So I missed 10 minutes or something by trying to type something. But I found it interesting. There were a few sort of diversionary things going on, and it was getting a bit away from the OBR issue. But one thing that I felt was that, the 1 billion rising really is a woman's thing. It's it's women expressing themselves, and I think standing up and being heard is very much part of that. So I felt that the OBR itself connection really has to stay as a woman's thing. But there was a lot of talk about violence against men and just violence generally, and I think it's something we really could do with more here. Maybe broadcast discussions on. The old hippie in me is saying, sort of, let's sort of complain about violence and what we can do about it and stuff like that. It seems to be more prevalent than ever these days. So, I think widening the discussion is a great thing, and putting links into the kiosks that are to a wider discussion as well is great. Although my personal feeling is OBR should retain its sort of feminine, female focus, I would say.
I think it will. But I think it will also. I think it will also reach out. One of the things that I thought was very interesting, and is a key issue, but is not an OBR issue really, as specifically as such, is the whole issue of cyberbullying. And we've seen quite a lot of that. It's not just trolling. Trolls can be ignored, but cyberbullies are people who will try and destroy people's online lives. And as we build up stronger online presences over time, I think that the destruction and the bullying that goes on in cyberspaces becomes increasingly important. It becomes increasingly important that we should address it. Honor Macmillan.
I would very much second that. Having seen a number of articles in the local press in my area about situations involving teenagers and cyberbullying and cyber stalking being done by kids they know.
Yeah.
That have and there are at least a couple of instances of kids committing suicide because they could not cope with it. It got so bad. So it's I think that's the tip of the iceberg of some of that sort of thing that goes on.
I know
it's horrific, and it's not just against teenagers. I mean, it happens against adults as well. I'd seen it in Second Life. And there's a horrible shark frenzy about some of it that, there's a kind of pile-on where people pile on things.
I think it's, I totally agree. It's very dangerous and needs to be, aware of. I mean, something, I know in that conversation, some people started going on about griefing and, it's violence or whatever and going off subject. But, in places like, you've got the internet anyway on the web. But in places like Second Life, we know from OBR, for example, a few people did not want to come to the main event because they didn't feel safe coming out of their closed communities. And there are many people in Second Life in places who prefer to remain anonymous, for example, and build up a life that they feel is secure and personal to them. And, all it takes is one of these kind of intruders, who, gets their kicks for some crazy reason out of causing distress in other people's lives, really. And, people get very emotionally attached to their avatar lifestyle in a lot of cases. And that could, that can be just as damaging as somebody who's tearing your life apart in the real world. So I really think
so. Yes.
It needs to be addressed for sure.
I think there's a lot of kind of overspill between your personality in the real world and your personality in virtual worlds on places like Facebook, Twitter, etc., etc. We're all constructing a kind of rhizome personality that has roots in different places, even if we're using anonymity in Second Life. And it's an issue that should really be taken seriously. It's not really the remit of OBR, but I think perhaps we need, something that looked at it like OBR as well. I mean, one of the things that makes me very impatient is a lot of the people who are actually doing this bullying keep portraying themselves as victims. That they will be extremely hostile to people. They will join in gang punch-ups, and when something happens, like a comment gets deleted, a comment that they've made on a blog gets deleted, they are howling their heads off about censorship and how unfair it is, and how they're a poor little victim. And
yeah, nah, bad news indeed. Well, moving on, Tara mentioned, of course, that Fashion for Life is going on, which is one of the preliminaries to Relay for Life, the climax of which, of course, is our wonderful telethon.
Mal, the climax of Relay for Life is the wonderful weekend, which we cover in a telethon.
Yeah, okay. I really put my foot in it there. Yeah, of course it is. The climax for us, I should say, is the telethon and the weekend we do. It was, yeah, okay, I put my foot in it there. Sorry, folks. The reason that I was actually going to segue in here, I know that there's where we record the audio of this section in Skype, and I put a little link into Skype, and I mentioned it earlier on in the highlights actually about that basically this weekend in London at a place called Tech City in East London, there's been a game jam, which is a sort of hackathon, and they're working on developing a game that uses the human eye to detect minuscule changes in genetic data. And the idea is, Amazon are hosting it, and Google are involved in things, and they want to make a game that will basically turn us all into citizen scientists, and what they call crowdsourcing a cure for cancer. I think that this is rather a nifty idea. I mean, it's not a metaverse as such, but, it will be a game that is educational and would actually have, people, the mass of people, the crowdsource of people online contributing, to finding the cure and looking at genes and things. Well, I don't know. It sounds great.
It reminds me of those projects that used to be run a little while ago. I'm not sure if anyone still runs them, where that they basically soaked up your spare computer capacity.
Yes.
For running algorithms that needed to test things like sequencing genomes.
And those are still very much going on, because it's the world. That's the World Community Grid, and they are at any given time running multiple different projects. I signed up for that. Oh gosh, 6, 8, 9 months ago or something, and it happily runs in the background on my Mac. And after a few rounds of kind of getting adjusted and figuring out what worked for me, so it wasn't intruding on my regular day. It just cranks away at genome folding, and it's clean. There's a clean energy project that I'm plugged into. There's a Help Conquer Cancer project right now that's going on. So yeah, it's one of those very cool things, I think, that I would encourage anybody to look for World Community Grid and sign up, and let your computer do some extra work when you're not using it.
I think it's a great idea.
On that general cancer thing, I would hope in any crowdsourcing that a chunk of the discussion would include discussing the issue of the chemical load that has been added to our environment in the last 100 years And the degree to which I think that is a smoking gun to me, that is very hard to address. All the places that non-natural chemicals have been added that are now in our bodies, that certainly weren't in our bodies 100 years ago, are the human body 100 years ago, our bodies. I don't think any of us have been around quite that long. But that whole issue is one that to me is a bit of an elephant in the room. It's difficult to study because you've got all kinds of the people doing research always like to kind of isolate their variables, but how do you isolate all those chemicals that we've been eating from one another? You can't, and nobody knows how those are interacting in us. And what they're doing to us in their collective and not just in their individual thing. So it'd be interesting to see in any crowdsourcing project around cancer how much that comes up and what kinds of ideas come up for looking at that and addressing it.
I would hope so. I mean, I'm vegetarian, so I'm pretty fussy about the food I get anyway. But I mean, I look at the packets of almost anything now in the food chain, and there's so many additives and things that, maybe one of them's safe on its own, but you just don't know about the combinations of things. And you've only got to look at the horse meat so-called scandal that's happening throughout Europe at the moment to realise that nobody's, these things hardly ever get checked until suddenly something's found out and they're all running around in a flurry, saying, oh, good grief, what's happened, And I'm sure it's the same with chemicals and things like that cause cancers and what have you. Very, very worrying.
It is.
Let's bring you back in, Ham. Is Dublin involved in any of the Relay for Life activities at all?
Yes. Hello.
Yes.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Yeah,
I wasn't sure if you were still hearing me. I thought it dozed off a little bit. It is kind of late here.
It is midnight where you are.
No, it's after 20 past midnight, yes. No, we have actively been involved in Relay for Life. The last year, I foolishly volunteered to do a 24-hour DJ marathon for Relay for Life. I was getting a little bit sleepy towards the back end of that, and we have had a number of awards from them for the stuff we've done over the years. So we'll almost certainly be doing it. It's a topic very close to my heart. My mom passed away with cancer not that long ago, and I've done a lot of real life things for fundraising. I think one of the first things I did, which was a challenge, was I arranged to travel around the world in 48 hours on standby tickets.
Wow.
A lot of help from the airlines, but you can imagine that what started off as a simple route, because I had to have second or third options from every airport I landed in. I ended up leaving with a batch of 167 tickets. None of them confirmed.
Oh wow!
Wow.
I have done a lot of stuff like that for cancer charities in particular.
That must have been quite an adventure.
Well, there was a very amusing moment in Tokyo Airport. I'd arrived on one airplane, and I was very tight for the connection for the next airplane, and so they'd called ahead, and the agent picked me up at the gate of the first airplane, down a set of steps into a car, raced across the tarmac, the ramp area in Tokyo Airport, into a smaller building, up the stairs, and he's pushing me hard in the smaller bit back. And then suddenly there's a little girl running beside us. She says, "Ticket, ticket, ticket, ticket." So I gave her my ticket to discover that it's a standby ticket only, staff ticket. And they'd been given the impression that I was somebody really important, that I had to make this connection. And so she's screaming at the top of her voice, standby ticket, standby ticket. In the meantime, her colleague has got his hand in the small of my back and is propelling me into this airplane so that it wasn't late. I have no idea how they resolved it afterwards, but the door closed and the airplane pushed back. And I'm sure there was an unholy row afterwards saying, what, you did all of this You held up a fight for a guy who paid nothing for his ticket.
I take it they didn't shove you into the driver's seat, as a pilot's seat.
Oh, not at all. I did start it off, actually, in the pilot seat. I flew from Dublin to East Midlands. It was only a short trip in the pilot seat of the aircraft I was flying at the time with Aer Lingus. And that's what started it off. And then I just travelled as a passenger. There was a little tag onto the end of it with one of the national newspapers in Ireland who agreed. People paid a pound or whatever to contribute, and then they had to estimate the number of miles I would travel. So that meant I had to get a piece of paper signed by all the crew along the way around of exactly how many miles there was on their flight plan. And I remember coming back on the last flight was out of Heathrow back to Dublin, and I sent this piece of paper up to the cockpit, and the captain actually came down. And he said, "Is this for real? Have you been doing this for the last 27 hours?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "What time are you supposed to be back there by?" I said, 10 o'clock. He said, "You might have to paddle a bit faster." The other thing we did is we got Seco gave us sponsorship, and we put a big timer up on a display stand in Dublin Airport, and we had to do it all in 24 hours in the end. So it was good. I still have the photograph: 23 hours, 58 minutes, and 32 seconds.
Wow.
Without cheating. That was without cheating. That was, yeah.
That was to get right around the world.
Yes, yeah, on standby tickets.
Well, it's a smaller world now. It took 80 days.
Well, that's true, yeah. But he missed some.
Depending on which way around the world you were going as well.
Yes, that's true. No, I went with the wind. That helps.
Great. Okay. I gather, by the way, you haven't actually got your lip sync button on. Talking in world. So
that's why I was worried about it. That's why.
Yes, we were watching you with very quiet lips for such a loud voice. Yeah, anyway,
turned off. There we go.
Anyway, let's head back to Saffia for OBR is on Designing Worlds tomorrow, isn't it?
That's right. Yes. We haven't had it on Designing Worlds before. I might have been talking about it an awful lot, but this is its first trot out on Designing Worlds. We've got a brilliant survey of the artworks that we're on, which will be a chance to see the amazing works of art that were created for OBR. Our camera people went out and shot those. And we've got a wonderful sequence. I'm not sure if any of the video that you, Mal, and Pet took has been included, but it may be. And thank you for supplying that.
Yeah, I think Pet's used some of the video we shot on that, and actually, there's been quite a few things on YouTube. There's one prolonged slideshow, which it looks like it might be. Been put on YouTube, and it's one of your inserts for the show. I'm not sure, but yeah, there's been a lot of coverage. Even I did a walkabout. What was it, a couple of weeks ago, with my terribly improvised clips of all the artworks. And yeah, but there were some very interesting things there. You know, I was stumbling around, talking into the camera, trying to explain what they were, when I had absolutely no idea what they were. But I thought, well, this looks nice, doesn't it? And oh yes, that's up there, and sort of stuff. But no, they were great installations to look at. And
that was one of the suggestions that came out of the meetings, that people wanted to see that kind of artwork carried on. And was suggesting that we should have, displays at other events based around art installations. And I think that's a really good idea. That, maybe we should have something from OBR at the birthday.
Oh yes, for sure. I think main events like that. When people come up with these suggestions, I keep thinking, yeah, well, who's going to pay for the sim, you know.
Yes, quite.
You know, people are, I have to admit this, they were full of this yesterday. You know, you see lots of people coming up with ideas and, you know, it's a great idea thrashing session, but, you know, how many of them have thought of the cost of or the practicalities of bringing the ideas on board? But certainly, you know, artwork that has meaning to a particular cause and is connected to it, you know, sort of, there's nothing to stop you sort of packing it up and, you know, bringing it out again at a later date or modifying it at will. Something I forgot to, I'm going to stick it in here actually, Saffia, is I forgot to say in my summary, I think we're going to be joined by my pal Doozy Dragonash next week as well. Some of you may have wondered where Metaverse Island went to on the map. It's actually moved about 2 sims over, so it's still there. Metaverse TV's main sim, and there's a whole arpeggio of islands there that's all part of the complex. But Metaverse TV's satellite has gone. It was essentially costing a lot. It had been specially built and the owner had disappeared, so it was very difficult to modify. Parceling was hell, and basically it was just it was a loss-making sim. So it has been packed away, and it may reappear on OpenSim at a future point in time. But if you are looking for Metaverse Island, it's still on the map. It's just moved. I think it's 2 sims across and 1 sim down, as they say in the crossword puzzles. So, but that is the beauty of it. You know, you can take builds like that, which are magnificent sort of art in themselves in a way, and just pack them away, and they can be rezzed at a later point. And of course, if you can export them, you can also res them elsewhere, shall we say. Anyway, what else is new, Saffia?
Well, in addition to the machinima contest that Tara was talking about earlier, Tara, I don't think you mentioned that they've now decided who's going to get the LEA sims for the art exhibitions. Because you know there are the grant sims that have long-term installations on them. They've now chosen who's going to have the next round. And there's some familiar names. I'll need to go and quickly call something up to check this. There are some familiar names, but there are some names that are very new. They were really encouraging people who hadn't put in for a sim before to put in for a sim this time. And people obviously have taken them at their word. And what's quite exciting is that there are names that I've just not heard of before, and it looks really good.
Yeah, the other week we were actually encouraging people to enter this.
Exactly, and
it seems so soon that they've been announced. But you know,
yes, they made their decision quite quickly, and I know that it's not. You know that there are people who've just not. Who may not have got what they wanted. So it's not as though everyone got one.
Yeah, you can't give it to everybody, but...
Right, I'm just seeing if I can find the list here.
Well, also
always fun finding stuff in our virtual inventories.
Yeah, well, that's great. Of course, the UWA have got their 3D open 3D art contest going on, and machinima reflections going on too. The 1.1 million lindens in prizes is the total now for the machinima UWA.
Oh, it's gone up since what's posted on their website then.
Yeah,
so 1 million was what was in the news release.
Yeah, I don't know what it is about JJ, who was on the show a few weeks ago, of course. The prize money of these things just seems to go up and up. It seems to fall into him from all over the place. He actually let off a Facebook tweet in the week saying something about, I'm just sitting here and I seem to be getting all this money to hand out as prizes in this thing I'm doing in a virtual world. As if he was as astonished as everybody else. So, some pretty high stakes money now in this stuff, which is great.
I did notice that the description on it this time around specified a 4.25 minute maximum, highly recommended.
Yeah.
As Mel, as I know you recall, there was, I'm not sure last year or the year before, that there had been no specification on time limit, and there were an awful lot of things that came in at 10 and 15 minutes each.
Well, I downloaded them all to watch in one session on the big screen. I like doing it that way with surround sound and everything, because I'm checking for every element of production. And, I think it was nearly 7 hours constantly. I had to sit facing the screen because, there'd be an hour long thing. And the next will be a 3-minute, and then there'll be a half-hour thing. And then, JJ is so free and easy with it. He doesn't want to stipulate too much. But I kind of like what you said, Tara. He put highly recommended. It's a very polite way of saying. I won't moan too much if it's not or something, But yeah, they are, timing. Getting a machine told in a certain amount of time, I think, should be definitely part of the brief, so to speak. So, Saffia, have you dug up
I've dug up the list.
Oh, lovely.
And this is the Full Sim Arts series, which offers artists across the grid a full month's access to an LEA region in which they can host a show of their choosing. And for 2013, March is Fuchsia Nightfire with Fuchsia's Fantasy Fairyland, yes. April is Cristali Rabini with a piece called Virtually Real. May is someone called Pale Illusion. From their name, I imagine that they are actually a resident, Pale Illusion resident. Frozen in Time. June is Calangleric with one called Tomorrow. July is Nino Vision. August is Seren Vida, another resident name. September, Secret Rage. October, Rebecca Bashley.
Yeah, Secret Rage, of course, works with Lapiskin,
yes.
who's joined the channel chat, actually. Hi, Lapis.
And November is Lila Artis and Mohana Sandalwood. And I apologise if I'm mispronouncing names. And December is Giovanna Cerise. And then there are the next 4 months of next year. January is Jem Perez. February is C. Mizin. March is Mary Wickentower.
Oh, another familiar. Yeah.
And April is Michael Romani and Bewildered.
Well, there's plenty of new names there.
So lots of new names that I
yeah.
haven't heard of, yeah. So that should be really rather exciting, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, it's one of the drawbacks with some of these things. You sometimes you miss them, because you're just busy or stuff like that. But sometimes the names come up so often that I look at this invite and think, oh, I've been there, but in fact I haven't. I've been to their previous one or something. So new names is the more the merrier, I think.
Absolutely.
Good indeed.
It's also, it's good to see some names that are, that are resident. Those being obvious newer Second Life participants, since that could well represent people who are doing things in are artists in real life who are branching out into virtual environments.
That's right. I mean, it's one of the things that troubles me about Second Life is that we encounter so few residents in responsible positions. Actually,
I was actually about to say sort of the opposite. I got a radar here for people visiting the Meta Urban Week and stuff like that, and I'm actually, I think we forget, it's now quite a long time since Linda, now to run Second Life here, changed the default surname to Resident. And, you know, at the beginning, as you can probably imagine, new users, you know, could be identified very quickly by their surname because it was called Resident, even if it's not always their display name. But this actually, I think it's a couple of years ago now. So agreed, you can look at the profile of the avatar, and if their surname's Resident, you know they're not a noob anymore necessarily. They
absolutely.
are just they are just more recent than the oldies. Put it that way. But you know, I've quite often been amazed to see that somebody organising something, or you know, somebody is building something or an installation or something, is called somebody Resident, because it's now been long enough that the original people who had to take the Resident surname have sort of grown up in Second Life, as it were, and like everybody else knows their way around, they know what to do, they started doing their own things, and you know, they're popping up everywhere now. It's a bit confusing when you've got so many residents everywhere, if you see what I mean. But yeah, I actually think they are beginning to make their presence felt. But
I think they are, but it has taken an awfully long time. I mean, I'd set up, by the time I'd been in 6 months, I was running Prim Perfect, and you know, Prim Perfect was quite a big going concern by then. Ham, I don't know about you, how much you'd done on Dublin after 6 months of being in, or Mal and Tara, what point you'd reached.
Yeah, I think
let alone 2 years, you know.
Personally, I think, you know, I just spent 6 months growing up. I was already with Nick Wilson and people on Twitter, and that's how I got in here. So, you know, maybe once or twice a week I go to a Twitter meetup, and what became Metaverse eventually became Metanomics and things like that. So there was a serious connection. But, you know, in my spare time, I was just hanging around doing stupid things that everybody does. You know, Second Life. How do you get this money anyway? And what, you know, what do you do? And what are these silly camping things? And, you know, you're learning. You know, it's like going to a new country. And you arrive broke, and more or less, and you just wander around. You've got to feel the culture. You've got to find out what this community of people is all about. And there is a point when you suddenly think, oh, well, you know, I know enough, and hey, we should do that, and hey, we should do that, and sort of get on with it. But, you know, I've just had my 6th Res Day, which I missed the other week. I mean, Ham, let's go to you. I mean, you've been in here, you really were the early pioneers here.
Yes, I love the idea. I pioneered the Irish bar in the virtual world.
Well, yeah,
but honestly, that's exactly what I did. You know, in my travels, I travel all over the world, and I always try and track down an Irish bar, and I always rate it based on its ability to actually reflect a real Irish bar. What I found over the years, obviously I started on the mainland. I eventually bought a bit of land, built an Irish bar on it called the Blarney Stone, and streamed in an Irish live music radio station and wait to see what happened. And it just, you know, I had so many people would just show up there because it was a good place to be, and they could relate to a pub. They could relate to an Irish pub. You know, I didn't need to put a big banner outside. This is what happens in an Irish pub. Most people would show up in an Irish pub and knew what would happen in an Irish pub. It made it so easy. And when it came to the Dublin project, I said, well, now I'm going to put context around the Irish pub. I'm going to put the rest of the city in. And over the years, I've had so many new people show up in Dublin. And I've always trained the staff that you welcome new people, because they're going to be the residents of tomorrow. They're going to be the guys who will be coming to events or want to play music or want to do things. So we've always encouraged new people. We've given them help. We've sometimes taken them off to shops, to show, to buy them things and so on. And to me, that's one of the biggest rewards I've got is when 2 years later somebody shows up and said, well, you may not remember me, but I walked into your bar 2 years ago, and you talked to me, which was unusual at the time. So it's I still see a lot of that, and I'm but every time I come in now, there's 3 or 4 new people in the bar that I haven't met before, and they're not passing through. They come and they stay for a while, and they learn some things, and they gain some more knowledge, and they come back for updates or to ask more questions and so on. And to me, that's the heart and soul of what Second Life's about: is getting people, engaging them, and then watching them grow, watching them develop themselves. That's really good.
And I know a lot of people come, some of the slowdown that Saffia mentioned may be due to the fact that Linden Labs themselves promote more to a sort of gaming type community these days, and I think a lot of people come in not to play games, but as entertainment and to escape a bit, and you can. People get tribal, so they latch onto a community and they don't go out of their sim so often once the novelty of flying and teleporting is over. I mean, I'm as guilty of that as anybody. But I think there is a compelling thing here of you want to do something after that initial learning curve, so to speak, and getting to know where you are and what you are. You just think, I want to do that. I want to do that. It's no longer enough to just have a house to go to and admire a virtual house or admire a virtual beach. You feel compelled to start doing something, just as you, I don't know, choose to work in real life or whatever. And possibly it's just, been a bit slower in terms of the last couple of years. The type of people that have been encouraged to come into Second Life are maybe a bit slower on that participatory curve than the people who are here in the early days, so to speak.
I was in my own case. There's a 9-month gap between what my res day is and when I actually got Inworld, thanks to having signed up for an account and then tried to log in and discovered that my computer hardware was not up to the task at all.
I was just going to say,
I got a rude message just saying, sorry, you can't log into Second Life. And it was that long before I was able to do the upgrades that I needed to do in order to be able to log in. But from that point, it was still, I would agree with Mal there. I think there's, short of those people who come in with a preset plan because they've seen some particular thing and they connect with it and they say, I want to go do that, and come in and start doing a particular thing almost immediately. I wasn't what I knew I didn't want to do was get myself in a position remotely like some of my earlier online work where I was leading a community. I knew that my days running things were long past. I don't want that responsibility. I don't want the headaches. And so I got in and just sort of started wandering around, as Mal said. I got interested in building fairly quickly. But even that, I kind of took my time, and it was a few months before I finally bit the bullet and got a premium account and picked up a 512. But again, that was back in the first LAN days, so you could pick up a 512 for almost nothing, and you had that anyway. It's amazing how fast you discover that how little you can do with 117 prims, and that's probably not actually as true today with the advent of mesh. And even with Sculpties, because there have been, now you can do with a single prim what it used to take 20 to do. So there's a kind of a flexibility now, even with small spaces, for somebody who is attentive to the to the possibilities. But that's kind of always been my interest. I got involved in a sim build for basically the first Buddhist sim called Bodhi, and that sim's been gone for some time, but I discovered landscaping and resing trees and building ponds and waterfalls and some of that, which has always been something I've enjoyed. And
it is a personal thing, though, isn't it? People get different things out of Second Life, and it can vary completely. I mean, just sitting here, I can tell you that the biggest I've never been able to build to any great description. As soon as there's a market for brown boxes, I'm there. Wooden boxes. I'll have a factory. I'll churn them out. My fascination with Second Life has always been about the people, how the people react, how they present themselves. Given a chance to be anything, they look any way they can look. What they actually choose, it really is. And I will be honest. I play mind games with them. It seems a bit strange, but I'm so curious about how they react to some of these things. My big thing is I have an Irish bar. Yep, it's in the middle of a city build, and it's an Irish bar. Now, if somebody walks into my bar and is not wearing a shirt, I'll remind them. I'm sorry, could you put a shirt on, please? You're in the bar. And you can almost see, although the face has no expressions, you can almost see him thinking, but hang on a second, this is a virtual world and I can do anything I want. And I say, well, yes, you can, but you're in my bar now. And therefore you need a shirt on. If you haven't got one, I'll give you one. That's not a problem. But you need a shirt on in the bar. Now, you can come in as a wolf. You can come in as anything else you want. That's not a problem. But if you come in as a human, you have to wear a shirt.
You have to have a shirt on. In other words, wolves don't need to wear shirts in your bar. That's nice.
The psychology of it all, the whole mind games of it all, I've always found it fascinating. It's been so good. Some of the guys I used to have in there were really good at it. They would play the game. One guy, and I tagged him. He told me he was going to do this. He had rented a house the other side of the River Liffey. He'd got himself an old style nightshirt and a candle on a stick. And he walked. He told me he was going to do it. So I could follow him on the camera from the other side of the sim. He walked all the way across to the bar, walked into the bar and said, "Can you guys keep the noise down? I'm working on the early shift in the brewery tomorrow morning." The fact that he went to that effort.
Oh, that's wonderful. And of course he was wearing a shirt. I like it.
Just to produce a little moment of entertainment in the bar. Yeah,
I've been to quite a few social dues where it's sort of you have to have a tuxedo on. They won't let you in without the tux, and I can't be bothered. Well, I do. I have a tux, but it just sometimes seems if I'm just going to be in there for 5 minutes, I don't want to have to change.
But you have the answer for that now. You have the avatar that can go anywhere.
Oh yeah, my pussycat, and of course in recent years we've had that sort of costumes thing on the menu, so I keep it at a standby. I think I've got an avatar dressed in a tux ready to go. It's a click of a mouse kind of thing. But in the old days, you were searching for the shirt, then for the jacket, then for the shoes, and putting them on manually one by one, and it took forever.
It got a bit more interesting when the Goreans would come with their slaves. And I'd say, I'm sorry, they can't sit on the floor. It's very unhygienic. This is a pub. You cannot sit on that floor. I'm really sorry about this. And again, I could see him saying, but this is where my master wants me to sit. I said, I'm sure he does. But honestly, you don't want to know what's been on that floor. You really shouldn't sit there.
I was just going to say, looking at most virtual pubs, it became some virtual splinters in the house or something. They're all wooden floors, aren't they?
So it's all about the psychology.
Yeah, I think the Barney stays.
Yeah.
Okay, well, had a great chat here. I think it's about time we started wrapping up. So
before we do, I want to express my envy of Tara, who has brought along a megapus.
Oh,
how did you get a megapus?
I lucked out. I actually have 3.
I knew that.
But this is the only one I've unboxed. This was the first one, and Smudge turned up. Within a few days of when the upgrade happened, and I was absolutely thrilled. Of course,
I don't blame you.
Unboxed her immediately.
Dying to get one. You can ride them. They are sufficiently large that you can ride them.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you what, I will come down here and
Camera, follow her down.
Yeah,
Yes,
Pet Love already has the camera on the Megapus, so
on the
Tara's going to give
Megapus.
us
Yes, I will
demonstration.
sit on the Megapus here.
Wow.
And the one thing I learned is they work really well if you're going in a straight line, but you cannot turn on a dime with the darn things. Oops. And whether I can get...
Yay, still on it. I think the camera I'm seeing on our studio monitor is a wee bit behind, but
Yes, galloped out of sight.
Galloped off camera. Yeah, there she goes. Oh dear.
Anyway, here she is back on stage. She did manage to follow me. Yes.
Oh.
I won't attempt it since now I'm standing on stage. But if you double tap, they will run too. But as I say, the big thing I discovered about them is that they don't turn quickly. You can be, using the right arrow, and they'll eventually, they'll kind of curve around, but you really have to plan your turns.
Oh no! I need another sign for my bar now, don't I? Please park your cats outside.
Yes.
Yes.
Anyway,
we were showing not on in the main channel earlier a short clip. I took it out when it got fully grown, and Tara was actually holding it, cuddling it, and you couldn't see Tara really. all you could see was this monolithic pussy. But great fun. Wonderful. Yeah, I've seen a few people with them now, but I guess they're in high demand. You're going to auction one, aren't you, Tara? Did you tell me you're going to?
Yeah, I may auction Smudge because, as I say, I have two others, and one of them's an Aussie cat lavender with soft fold ears. That's just so cute. I mean, it's almost my dream cat. And then I have a black Russian, is the third one that has turned up.
Right.
And so Smudge is young enough that I may let her go.
Is Megapus a trait that can be passed on?
This definitely increases their value because it's not a passable trait. They're random, just like there's toys and
teacups. Yeah.
And there's two other sizes. There's and those took a little longer for me to get any of those. One of them is called a petite, and is between the size of a teacup and a regular size. And then there's one that's called the Bigger D Big, which is where they came up with the Bigger D Big name. I don't know. It's between the size of a regular kitty cat's and the Megapus. And I haven't I've got two of those in boxes, and I haven't actually unboxed either one to kind of compare in size. But
I love the idea of a biggity big. When I guess the next on the agenda will be an elephant puss.
Possibly.
They're gonna come up with something. You can be sure of it.
Well, one of the things I love is if I were to turn her loose on her animations, well, I guess she does. She might. One of the animations that they have is in the ones that randomly rotate when they're not posed is one where they bat at butterflies and temperate butterflies. And I was delighted to see that the butterflies that res with the Megapusses are good-sized butterflies. They're big, so the size to match up. And apparently, what they've done with these, they're the same. They're the same construction as the basic size. So it's not like they have more prims or anything. And even better, unlike their human counterparts, a Megapus does not eat you out of a virtual house and home. At the same rate as their normal sized
that's good. They're just picky eaters, aren't they? Let's
just
face
picky
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
She bites and then they storm off. Yeah.
Yeah, the teacup and the times eat just
Yeah, they're expensive. They eat their weight in cat food per day.
Okay, I have no idea how I explain this to my real life friends tomorrow. Not a clue how I start.
Well, it's interesting. I don't know what Tara's Chris Collins, the former Lyndon Chris Collins, has a new thing which is on the iPad, and actually it's in beta. There's also now a desktop version of something called Strangelings. Which is, it's accumulation of this idea. It's just gone viral. You have the idea of the virtual pets. You feed them and do all sorts of things to them, which means the people marketing them have got a regular income, even though they've already sold you the pet. And you can breed them, and you can build up databases of diagnostic traits. And it just seems to become a huge sort of hobby and indeed business for people. And the Strangelings aren't cats, but they're an extension of the idea of the fantasy sort of creature. And part of it is just having a virtual pet and playing with it, but the other part is all this sort of breeding and genetics and everything else. It's quite fascinating.
I'll stick to virtual beer.
Yeah. I think there's a virtual every pet almost these days. To one to another.
Yes. Yeah, you'll stick with breeding yeast.
Absolutely.
A couple of hours before coming on this show, I was actually filming a dancing horses thing. Well, we weren't filming it; we were prepping it, shall I say? Anyway, yes, Saffia, and any other news too.
I was going to say, other news. One of my favourite Relay for Life events is coming rapidly towards fruition. This weekend, the invitations for stalls at Fantasy Fair are going out. Yes. Fantasy Fair is looking fantastic. Great builders are going to be building stalls. Building the different sims. There's a huge hunt planned. It's all looking really exciting and really great fun. And I think I'm going to be having I'm working on a documentary about how the Fantasy Fair comes together, which will be shown later on as part of Designing Worlds. But I'm at the moment looking at taking out a stall for myself for a new old project.
A new old project?
That's right. Before I was here today, I was in a meeting discussing reviving the quest for the Golden Prim.
Oh, the comic!
Yes!
Yeah, the comic book, great.
Yes. Yeah. We're working with Darren Green, who is the guy behind the Splintered Rock comic, and which was featured on Hamlet's blog and also on Designing Worlds. And that's a web comic he runs on his own sim, Splintered Rock, which is part of the Araxes.
Yeah, I read that. It wasn't panel by panel. I found it not very engaging, but never mind. Yeah, it's good to see it being done. Yeah.
So what we thought we'd do is team up with him and revive the quest for the Golden Prim, and put that onto a website where people can vote to see how the stories go.
Right, okay.
So people will be able to read the story and then vote for what they want to see happen next. If they want poor Minnie, we had a meeting today and it's fantastic. Basically everyone is back for the new season. I sent out an email saying, shall we pick this up again? And it was like, yes! And we had a huge meeting and we were discussing all this sort of thing, and it looks like being really fun.
Will you still format it and publish it as a regular sort of comic strip too?
We're discussing that at the moment. I mean, I don't know whether it'll continue to be full pages, or perhaps we'll do strips. We'll do individual pictures and full pages. I mean, there are advantages. We've got PJ Trenton taking the photos, and the detail in them sometimes gets overlooked because you have a page on the web and you may be missing some of the really gorgeous detail that he's putting into every frame. And maybe if we spread them out, people could do that, but they could also collect the pages afterwards.
I think the idea of the readers dictating the way the story goes is the clinching factor there. It sort of, it gives them an extra reason for reading it.
Absolutely.
And coming up with their own ideas.
Yeah. And the idea is that initially they'll be able to get a certain number of tokens to vote on the story by registering on the website. But maybe later on, if they wanted extra votes, they could buy them with Linden's.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
So, and
look forward to that. We'll look forward to that.
Yeah, and anyway, we're taking a stall about it at Fantasy Fair, and we're hoping that we'll be launching the reboot of it there. So watch this space.
Tell me, Saffia, in terms of destinations and things, there was a blog at the Steampunk Tribune on Tuesday, Steampunk Travelog, which is a thing they do. And I read this title, and I thought... I haven't actually got there yet, but the title caught my eye. It's something called the Victorian Corrective Spa.
Oh, my.
I was going to ask you if you were familiar with this.
I'm not. No.
I would guess that's something like mineral baths, which were all the rage in the
absolutely
in that era.
Yes, Baden and all of that. Yes, Marienbad.
There are some lovely pictures, I have to say. On the
have to have a look. Yes,
it's at the Steampunk Tribune, and there's a picture, there's a poem here on a virtual background called "On Female Hysteria," and you got to put this in a steampunk context, and it's too long for me to read out anyway. But
well, if we decide we want to do that, I have a book of etiquette.
Yes,
for women from the turn of the century, and it is quite funny to read today. I'll have to dig that out, and maybe we can put a little something
we can
together.
go along with it. Yes, Pet is suggesting on chat that we should perhaps make a field trip to
a field trip.
To the corrective spa.
I was thinking that it's the sort of thing I have to get along to, and I would probably just end up making a 2-minute sort of clip.
Well, we can go visit and then figure out a suitable filming.
Film some snippets for the show later. Yes, that definitely does sound like a goodie. I mean, the novelty factor alone,
Absolutely.
but the pictures, it really does look something else actually. So rather exotic. Okay. Anything else? Any other events coming up we want to get in before we wrap up this bit of the show?
I'm not sure if I told you last week about Joe Yardley's new sim. Did I mention that? Joe Yardley of 1920s Berlin.
Oh, right, the new.
She's doing another sim, and it's based around the Blitz in London.
Oh,
right.
Yes,
right, yes.
Yeah, I remember. That should be
It should definitely be worth seeing.
Any idea when it's opening? Or?
No, I don't. I don't know at the moment, but you can go and like it on Facebook and keep up with the news there.
Okay. For those who use Facebook. There's another, I should put out an appeal here. People who use Facebook, they're Fastbook, I will call it. They make some people never get out of it. Some people just dip in now and again. Some people actually still don't use it at all. And I have actually noticed, talking last week, some people are actually like this with Google Plus. They've got a Gmail account or whatever, but they've never upgraded to Google Plus, although I think it may actually be compulsory now. But I should mention that the Metaverse Week in Review, the main show of which this is part, does traditionally have a live webcam discussions, which have been more monologue than dialogue, which is more the fun of being here, really. But to get to that, you actually do have to be a member of Google Plus, because we're going to be running it as a Google Hangout. Now, I know you've joined up, Saffia, but I've been sort of trying to put the word out for people to join. It's not a circle; it's a Google community, and just called it Metaverse Week in Review. And it acts as a sort of, it can actually be a sort of chat room for people to suggest things for the show and stuff like that, both this Inworld review and outside. But it's also how we will be contacting people for webcams. You simply press a button that says "Start a Hangout," and it immediately notifies anybody online that we're having a hangout and do they want to come and join us. So if you are not yet a member of Google Plus, I don't really see why you shouldn't be. So do get a Google Plus account if you can. I personally feel, well, it's a different issue. I feel much safer with Google Plus than I did with Facebook, put it that way. So if you've got a Facebook account, you've got no excuse, in my opinion.
I was going to say, and while we're mentioning things, there's a Subscribe-O-Matics here at the stage where this is happening for the Metaverse Week in Review show, and I endeavor to send out a notice at least an hour or so ahead of our Sunday shows for those who need a reminder. So come click on the board if you haven't done so. And when we do one of the Google Pluses, hopefully we'll plan that for with a little lead time, and I'll come in and send out a notice via that about that too. So,
great. So do not despair. If you're getting fed up with our avatars already, we will still delight you with organic faces from time to time. That's the way to put it.
Speak for yourself, man.
Well, yeah, it's nice being in here, though. I've been adopting this phrase. I get a phrase in my mind, and I keep at it for a few weeks. But, I described this changeover as a changeover from monologue to dialogue.
Deep.
And I think that... Yeah, I think that's fitting though too, because the webcam thing on live stream was fine, but you come on, as you know, Ham, I would switch over to you, and then it would be up to you to rab it for as long as you can before you handed me the camera back. Whereas this way, it's much more interactive, isn't it? Look, there's silence all round.
It is.
Dumbstruck.
Okay, let's go around the table with anything to finish with. Anything else from you, Saffia?
No, I think I'm done. I've told all my news.
Okay, and watch Designing Worlds tomorrow.
Well, absolutely. I'm assuming that people will be 2 p.m. tomorrow. It's going to be a cracker.
Indeed. Ham, it's been absolutely.
Yes, it's been great to be back and meet all you guys again and talk about stuff. While I've been here, I've been approached by somebody who wants to do a little documentary in the Blarney Stone for St. Patrick's Day. So,
that's nice.
Oh, wonderful.
Looks like people looking at things.
I will warn them. She says with the bitterness of someone who's tried to film in the Blarney Stone on St. Patrick's Day. So, that they will see lots of grey people, not green.
Yes.
This is
it's absolutely heaving.
It's good though, isn't it? It's good.
It is. It is good. It is good, but it's heaving.
For what it's worth, on the day I opened the Dublin Sim, we got 101 avatars in the sim. On that one day only, we had 101 avatars. And so many people were trying to get in, they kept bumping other people out.
I can believe it. It's incredibly popular.
It will remain one of the drawbacks of virtual worlds, Second Life anyway, for a while, that a successful venue rapidly becomes a lag fest, as we call it. But... it's half the fun of it sometimes.
Yes, it can be, yeah.
In fact, I seem to remember, was it Robin Harper's going away party?
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That was certainly an event to be remembered in many ways. I think it was Philip's arrival promptly crashed Second Life, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
And that was an event of many parts, I think is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, I seem to recall that one had had more than one restart.
Didn't we have at one stage, I think the musicians and everybody else was hanging out on the edge of a sim.
Yeah, in the air.
Floating in the air, yes. While the musicians happily played along. It was very good.
Yes.
Of such things is Second Life made. What else can we say? Okay, well, thanks a lot for being here, Ham. I hope we'll see you again.
Well, I will try and make it more regular. By this time next week, I will be back in real life Dublin. But actually, there's no internet connection in the house there, so it might take me a day or two to get that sorted out. But I would hope to be in a lot more often from now on.
So you're moving back from back to Ireland?
Yes, I'm moving back. I'm moving back to Ireland on Thursday. I fly out.
Wonderful.
Oh, great. Do you still have a base in Iceland, wasn't it?
I was in Iceland for a while. I've been in Bahrain for a while. I get around. What can I tell you?
I'm always keeping an eye out on Iceland, actually, because I think they would have a very big, if they can use all that water power and stuff like that, and cheap electricity, server farms.
It is an amazing place, absolutely amazing place. I lived there for 18 months, and it is unique in the world, as far as I'm concerned. They get all their electricity from either from hydroelectric or from running turbines from geothermal. The hot water is piped directly to your house.
Yeah, from geothermal. Yeah.
If I was setting up a grid or needed a server farm or something like that, I think Iceland would be my choice. I keep, it's just one of those countries I keep looking at, thinking, they're so ideally placed for.
Just remember the earthquakes, okay?
I was just going to say earthquakes and ash.
Volcanoes, yeah.
Yeah, and dust clouds over conferences. We remember that well.
Yes, you do.
Oh, yeah.
But we did the best we could, and it was.
We still had good fun.
We look back on that and see some of the things that come up in the aftermath and think, "Oh God, for Dublin again!" So well put together, and you were very instrumental in that.
Oh yeah, well, it was a lot of fun. We still had a lot of fun with it. I think one of the biggest moments, I have to say, was getting all those people into Gogarty's pub, which the Blarney Stone was modelled on, and have people walk in saying, "I don't believe it. It's like the real one." In other words, it's like the virtual one.
just as laggy in the organic world. Yeah,
absolutely, absolutely.
And you really don't want to sit on the floor.
No, you don't. You don't want to sit on the floor there. No, you don't.
Probably no room to sit on the floor. Yeah. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up with that, folks. We've nice long discussion. Thoroughly enjoyed it, and of course we will be back same time, same place next week as part of the Greater Metaverse Week in Review show. Now,
closer to St. Patrick's Day, and
indeed we will. So that's an excuse to come back next week, Ham.
Oh, I don't need much of an excuse.
But anyway, that's going to be it for the Inworld portion this week. And now, if you're watching this live, folks, do remember we are still live with the sort of marathon show that is a Metaverse Week in Review on the web. And in part 2, we'll be just looking at a whole bunch of new clips from the week. I can tell you, at a brief look here, we have a performance of the Pirates of Penzance coming up. And then we've got a whole load of rather nice sort of new videos too, which will be running for the next hour or so. And it's all on replay, which you can find at, probably the best is www.metaverseweekinreview.com, because that will show you the replay of the last 4 weeks or so that are running on our channel, or at MBTV iVenue, of course. So, with that, I think that's that. I'm actually going to hop over to the studio here and cue a clip. And I think we can say goodbye and enjoy the Pirates of Penzance and everything that's coming up live. We'll see you next week. Bye for now.